How are queer relationships portrayed through the lens of romance genre compared to heterosexual relationships? The genre of romance has been a centre of film history from its very beginning, with love being a powerful factor in most narratives. Sneaking itself into other genres like action, horror and comedy, it propels the characters forward and engages the audience, with love being a universal language spoken by all. The romance genre follows the usual conventions of a light-hearted tone, feel-good nature, of course the main narrative being a focus on relationships, visually colourful with high-key lighting, happy endings, and usually aimed at a heterosexual female audience. In this piece, I will be comparing two films, Sorry Angel and Midnight in Paris, and delving into their themes through the lens of romance genre. I chose these two films as they are both romance dramas set in Paris and made in the same decade, with Midnight in Paris following a lot of the conventions set in the romance genre, with Sorry Angel taking an alternative look into love. Midnight in Paris has a light-hearted, charming tone to the whole film, which follows the usual romance film where love is something beautiful and even magical. Owen Wilson's character, Gil, has such an infatuation with the city and its culture that it transports him through time, teaches him about the past and helps him find true love. The film tackles an interesting subject of how nostalgia can blind people from the beauty of what's right in front of them, but apart from that and the time travel elements, it's a basic love story. Sorry Angel, however, sees love differently. Its approach to the subject matter is less optimistic, with love being a burden. Jacques, the protagonist, resents feeling something for Arthur, as he knows he doesn't have long left to live. It sets a timer on their story, whether it's worth the eventual pain to fall in love for the last time. A lot of the films that follow queer relationships follow a less blind optimism than most straight love stories. The film is a window into queer culture. AIDS, homophobia and one's identity is usually the main focus point, but a main one is forbidden love. A lot of queer films follow a Romeo and Juliet approach to the relationships, where a couple love each other and want to be together, but the society around them prohibits that, which, for a lot of these films, ends negatively. It creates a cycle for the audience that perhaps makes queer relationships seem impossible to flourish and prosper with these bad endings, but the tone and struggles it looks into highlights the certain struggles that queer people face in society, something straight relationships don't always have to worry about. Midnight in Paris has a very colourful atmosphere that paints Paris as a place of beauty, something glorious. We are seeing it through the eyes of American tourists, while Sorry Angel follows its tone with more muted visuals of Paris. It doesn't romanticise it, but instead shows its truth, shows its beauty, but also its sadness that a city can bring, the loneliness felt by our protagonists. With most of the film having blue hues to it, the cold atmosphere matches its sombre narrative and portrayal of love, whilst Midnight in Paris has warm tones that are more akin to the average romance film, as it allows for a more comfortable environment that relates to its couple's positive fairy tale-like story. The romance film convention of the tragic ending is one that is persevered through film history, but Sorry Angel takes this classic ending and blends it with real-world tragedy that makes use of its time period. Sorry Angel's protagonist, Jacques, is shown to suffer from the disease of AIDS and eventually succumbs to its struggles and passes away from it at the end of the film. AIDS was a lot more dangerous in the 90s when the film is set, so it gives its choice of the era some legitimacy. The 1990s saw a substantial increase in the number of infected people with AIDS. Between 1996 and 2001, more than 3 million people were infected every single year. In contrast, Midnight in Paris has a blissful ignorance to its romantic world. Gil gets to fall in love with no strings attached, no political or social issues restraining him. This is the case in most Western love stories. The troubles come from feelings, with Jacques' story looking at that, but through the eyes of a gay man with AIDS in the 1990s and what he has to deal with. Sorry Angel's relationship between Jacques and Arthur does fall into the category of an age gap relationship that is so common in gay films. There is nothing wrong with the gap in age, but when it's so common to see in queer films, it can lead to false stereotypes about gay couples. The character Matthew raises concern about this very topic, but Jacques and him begin to converse about it and how AIDS has created this gap in age generations within the gay culture. This film at least gives the explanation for this common trope, and it fits within the culture narrative and themes. Another angle that Sorry Angel takes that usually isn't prevalent in normal romance films that follow straight couples is hookup culture. Monogamy is a large part of the romance genre, with two characters destined to be together and stay together with no hookups or one-night stands. Matthew is usually seen hooking up with men and is not a taboo subject, it just is. It's an interesting factor to include so casually in the film. It has room for a classic love story but doesn't shy away from that component of gay culture. Paris is often seen in media as the city of love. Its romanticisation comes from these films. Paris is a stark contrast to the town where Arthur is from. His straight relationship there being on show, his gay relationship and sex life being only available in the city. Paris acts as a possibility for Arthur, for him to escape the traditional way of his town, to explore himself without judgment from other people he knows back home. Both films have the characters wanting to either move to Paris or have their partner move there with them. Having Paris be the city of love no matter the situation or the relationship or time period is a beautiful convention that shines through both of the films. Midnight in Paris had a budget of £17 million, so it had to reach that market of romance films, so it's more likely to follow these conventions of the genre as that is what the audience expects. It plays it safe with its narrative, otherwise the audience that watch these types of films would be turned off from watching it. Story Angel having the lower budget, €3.5 million, and less commercial appeal means it can explore these topics I've previously mentioned and can delve into the serious themes without being constrained by the genre's conventions and what's expected by the audience. The queer relationship is viewed then as one more tragic. Society's rules and circumstances are the obstacles the characters have to face, rather than Midnight in Paris with its internal struggles. The queer relationship doesn't have the Hollywood polish to it, opting for a more raw look into its story, with its nudity, pain, loss and discovery of self that isn't always prevalent in heterosexual romance films, but it is very common in queer films.